Hello, Seekers. Thank you once again for joining me for part two of the solo guide to Dungeon Fantasy. Getting started with Dungeon Fantasy. And I thank you for joining me for this series. It's my first series of trying to do a sort of a guide video. And it's also been an interesting process. And I hope that I can continue to bring some more guides to you occasionally as the need arises. I really felt like Dungeon Fantasy is such a cool game, and it does have a reputation of being kind of tough to get into. So I really felt the need to try to do anything that I could to help people to jump into it. So let's get back into it today. Today we actually are going to be getting into the adventure into Sather's Bane, and we will be playing through a portion of that and playing through one combat. And when we get to the combat, I am going to try to, at least for the first round, maybe 2 rounds, I am going to try to walk through step by step. So if some people are watching this and just trying to get a taste of what the combat is like, hopefully I can show that. Or if you're just getting started with the game yourself, hopefully I'll be able to help you kind of ease into it a little bit and just see how another beginner like myself would play it, and play it with a little bit more simple rule set than what you could, because there's quite a lot of depth that you could go into. But I'll be trying to play it just as simply and cleanly as possible, and I will talk about some opportunities to bring in more detail if you wanted to play it that way. Which of course I do like detailed combat, but you got to pace yourself. So, all right. So now I have our characters, and what I've done is I have printed out the characters from GCS, GCS being the app that I showed you last time. And on the back, I have all of their inventory as well. And so you can use GCS to just go ahead and print out characters that you have in there. And these are the 4 characters. You start with 4 characters when you begin Sather's Bane. And one of them is the character that we created in the first episode. This is Barn the Barbarian. So this is the one that we created. And one thing to note with him is that when I put his basic kit, his gear backpack onto him last time, I put that into his carried equipment. And the carried equipment is going to count against you as far as encumbrance. But you have another section called other equipment. And that's actually where you want to put the basic kit, because the idea with the basic kit is that it is kind of a backpack, a rucksack, a travel bag. And what the characters do when they do engage into combat is they go ahead and they drop that pack. And so that's not going to encumber you during the fight. And that's pretty critical, because it's really going to affect your move and your dodge, which you want to do everything that you can to keep that as light, or at light or none, as pretty much as you can. Because when you start getting into medium or heavy, it really does start to penalize you quite a bit. And another thing on that too, I do have the throwing weapon, the throwing axe, but I decided not to add a throwing axe to his inventory, because it actually would bring his inventory up to the light encumbrance, and I wanted to keep it on none just for the sake of the battle that we will have today. But that's a important little detail there that you should make sure you look at when you do create your character. And then for the other characters, we have Gentry, who is a swashbuckler, and we have Hawk, who is a scout, and then we have Misery, who is a knight. And what you can see here that I've put a number on all of them, and that is for their initiative. So that's their initiative within the party here. Now you will have to compare that with the initiative of other creatures and monsters and soldiers and things that you have combats with. But within the party, Gentry would have the first, would be the first one to go, because Gentry has the highest combination of basic speed and dexterity, because actually Barn has the same basic speed of 6, but because Barn has a lower dexterity, then the dexterity is the tiebreaker. So Gentry would actually be the first one, and then you can see Hawk is the third one, and Misery is the fourth. So I've written that down for the initiative order. So that's about the characters there. So again, we're using 3 pre-generated characters, and we're using 1 character that we made. But if you wanted to start Sather's Bane with 4 pre-generated characters, you could do that as well, and that would help you to get into the game even faster if you wanted to do that. So I have a few things laid out here. I have the all the different player aid sheets that I have printed out here that come from a combination of the GM screen and from the backs of the Dungeon Fantasy box set books. So we have all those player aids, which we'll definitely use as we go along. This is the character creation sheet that I talked about in the first video. So this is something that actually comes with the GM screen. And I highly, highly recommend that you get this. And this has this other kind of a player aid sheet here that's very useful. But one thing that it has, among many other things that are quite useful, one of the best things it has is it has this skill list. And one great thing about this is that this is only skills that are found in Dungeon Fantasy RPG, because if you go and search online for GURPS resources, there's quite a lot of GURPS resources available. There's fan-made things available as well. And the majority of those things are not really going to be tailored toward Dungeon Fantasy RPG. And so to have a skill list that only goes into what is needed for Dungeon Fantasy RPG is really useful. And then the second part of that, which makes it super useful, is that you have your skill defaults. And these are extremely useful to have, because it's going to tell you the difficulty level of a skill, and it's going to tell you the default value of a skill. So what the defaults are is that if you are not trained in a skill, then you're going to have a certain default value, usually at a severe penalty. And so if you were not trained in, say, two-handed sword, but you wanted to use two-handed sword, maybe your weapon broke and the two-handed sword was on the ground, so you picked it up. Well, you're going to have a certain penalty for using that because you're not trained, and you're going to be able to find those skill defaults, as they call them here. And also they have a reference to a page number so that you can learn about what that skill is. So this is an invaluable resource here as you're going to be playing the game, because you are going to need to look up skills. And one thing about Dungeon Fantasy or GURPS in general is that it has many, many skills, and it's something that I like about the game, but it's also something that you have to manage. And there's another thing in here. There's a small section called Delvers to Go, which is different from Delvers to Grow, and it has some pre-made characters that you can go ahead and use. And it's great to have another list here. And it also has another nice cheat sheet here, which I have not printed this one out on my on my cardstock that I have here. So I will be printing this one out in the future. You have a nice sheet here for looking at different areas and movement and line of sight and things like that. So lots of useful aids in the GM screen. So I highly recommend getting that if you are going to be getting started. And another thing to look at is the notes that I have here. So we're going to use notes to keep track of where we're going in Sather's Bane, because if you forget what paragraph you're on, because it's a paragraph driven game book, if you forget what paragraph you're on, it could be really hard to find out where you are. So we're going to keep track of that with our notes. And also there are certain events that will give you, it will give experience points to your characters. And you want to, you definitely want to track those so you don't forget and lose any of your experience points, or actually they're called skill points, I believe, or character points. So we'll keep track of what we're doing with this. And then of course you can also pick up your adventure later, because you may not have time to finish the entire adventure in one sitting. And Sather's Bane, it's not a really, really short adventure. I think it would probably take you a good, probably 6 or 8 hours to get through this. And that's assuming that you've already, kind of learned the basics. So it will take you a little while to get through this. All right. And then also with the Dungeon Fantasy books, we're primarily going to need adventures and exploits. These are the 2 books that we're primarily going to need. And this is really going to cover all of your skills, all your references for what skills do when you're not aware of what they do. And then exploits is really, gets into the nitty gritty of how you do combat, how you do exploration, how the different gameplay systems work. So this is the one that you probably would use a lot when you're playing. All right, so now getting into Sather's Bane, just going to do a really quick little look here before we get into the adventure. And there are some maps in Sather's Bane, and the maps are used for multiple different occasions, and they will tell you in the book, they'll tell you when you should use these maps. And what I'm doing is I have my own hex train that I'll be using that I kind of approximate how the map looks. So one thing that Sather's Bane does really well is it shows you, walks you through sort of step by step what you need to do to set up this adventure and how you should play it, and it does it really well. There's not a whole lot of things that you have to learn here. Like for example, here are the plot words. Usually if you succeed in some kind of check or something like that, you will earn plot words, and it's sort of a word that you can, you could keep like on your notes, and usually you will get some character points for doing that. Like usually it's 5 character points, and then those plot words, you can use those at later periods in the adventure, and if you have that plot word, it will allow you to advance to, a different part of the adventure that maybe you hadn't seen before. And they tell you about playing the game solo as well. There are clear instructions about how to play the game solo, and they encourage you to, just do the best that you can for managing the enemy AI, and go ahead and reserve your best tricks and things for your own party. And the game is kind of balanced that way. What you'll see in a lot of fights is that you're going to be outnumbered a little bit in most of the later fights in the game, and so it is kind of balanced in such a way that the AI may not play incredibly smart, but they usually have a little bit of a numbers advantage in a lot of cases. And so they go through here and talk about how you will have accelerated advancement. So another thing that's nice about this when you're a beginning player is that you can gain character points kind of at a faster rate than you would in a typical play group with a game master. And it's really good for teaching you how to build a character, because GURPS or Dungeon Fantasy, it is one of those games where maybe the first time you build a character and you see how you spend your points and you start to think like, you know what, I think I really shouldn't have spent my points that way. And so that first time, or maybe 2 times that you build a character, you're probably going to realize that you did some things that were, not too optimal, or maybe were a little bit of a waste. And so the fact that Sather's Bane helps you to jump in and build up a character quickly with progression, it teaches you, how to build a character, and that's a really good thing to learn, because the character building in Dungeon Fantasy is really great. I think it's one of the strengths of the game, and something that I like about the game very much. So they give you a lot of different options. Overall, they're trying to kind of give you a way of playing the game really in a more of a simple way. They really don't recommend going into too much craziness with different kinds of like character races and things like that. But they give you options there and let you know what you can do if you want to. And then you come into your pre-generated squad, and they walk you through that. They walk you through the basic equipment that you would need. And so I have put this basic equipment on all of our characters. And here's Gentry right here. Gentry is the swashbuckler. And so we are going to be using Gentry in our party. And this is Angel right here. We will not be using Angel because Barn is going to be replacing Angel. And then here we have Misery, and we will be using him. He's going to be in our party. He has a spear, which is also kind of a fun and interesting weapon to use. And then here we have Hawk, and Hawk being the scout or the archer, and we will be using Hawk. In the artwork here, Hawk has a crossbow, but Hawk does not use a crossbow actually in the standard loadout. So Hawk will be using a bow. I believe it is a composite bow. I think so. Yeah, it is a composite bow. So it is a little bit more powerful than your standard bow, but it is not a crossbow, as you see there. And then here you have the character sheets, and I don't know if these are listed anywhere else in the book. I think maybe they are not, but the boxes are a little small, so that's actually a nice thing about having the character sheets from GCS. You could plug this information into GCS and then generate a character sheet. And I believe from talking with Douglas Cole, who is he is kind of the boss of the Gaming Ballistic, and maybe the owner, and he is going to be having GCS files that will be pre-made for all of the characters and all of the monsters and things like that. That's something that is going to be available on the Gaming Ballistic website. I think with the digital packs, like the digital pack that you would get for the VTT. And if you do pick up the VTT, like if you have Foundry, you can have these kind of things already built into Foundry. So you could use those if you wanted to, if you were going to use Foundry, like maybe as an aid on the side. which I have done sometimes. And I could also use GCS as an aid over on the side. But because I want to be able to show you guys exactly what I'm looking at with the character sheets, I have printed these out. But if I was playing alone, not for YouTube, I would probably just reference the GCS sheets on my computer screen and look at them that way over on the side, just to save me a little bit more room here. But anyway, I do like having these sheets just because these ones are quite small, and GCS does go into a little bit more detail for you on calculating certain things. So it does make it a little bit easier as well, I believe, to play the game. So again, just another strength of GCS. All right, so we are just about ready to start the adventure. And let's give you just a little bit of backstory of what we're doing going into this here. I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but the Mercenary and Hero is really what sets up the whole adventure. So definitely read this before you start the adventure. So let's read through a little bit of this. Your experienced adventurers and soldiers of fortune who answered the kingdom's call to arms. The lure of good service for a just cause has drawn you to the fight. The king's silver doesn't hurt either. As combat veterans, you've been given positions in the Royal Border Guard, but events have not worked out as expected. While most of the royal and baronial forces are preparing to guard the northern border against the Overlord, garrisons still need to be maintained to suppress common bandits and barbarians. Unfortunately for your dreams of winning military glory against the Dark Lord's legions, as a new recruit, you found yourself sent far from the threatened northern theater. Your squad has been assigned to the western frontier, where a tiny garrison must keep the peace and protect border villages from local tribes of lizard folk. The kingdom's natural border is the Osric River, which winds through a deep gorge. There are valuable hardwoods and amber deposits found in the region. Hardy yeomen have settled the borderlands, even establishing villages in the wilderness of forests and swamps, home to scum bunnies, monsters, and barbaric lizard folk that lie beyond the Osric. So it talks in here a little bit more about the different lizard folk, and talks about your captain. It talks about how there also are some griffin riders that are in your company, and lately the lizard men have been a little bit quiet. So it says that so far your company hasn't seen much action. In fact, Captain Griswold worries that troops are growing complacent. He's heard a report from Fort Erie that one of their griffin riders is overdue from a reconnaissance flight in the southwest forest. That's a bit outside Griswold's area of operations, and he doesn't think the lizard folk could down a griffin. Maybe the rider just got lost. On the other hand, the lizard folk tribes have been very quiet lately. Too quiet? You think the captain might be right. With his permission, you decide it's time to lead a patrol into the wilderness and see what the lizard folk are up to. So we're going to proceed to paragraph 001 and begin our adventure. So here we are in the adventure proper, and we start with paragraph 001. Your company is based out of the small village of Cedar, the most exposed human settlement west of Osric River. The nearest of many lizard folk villages in the wilderness is a half-day's march away through the forest that borders the swamp. Your squad is departing on a scouting mission to see what the barbarians are up to. So we're going to go to number 78. So let's turn to 78. Your squad moves carefully through the damp woods and bogs, seeking any sign of unusual lizard folk activity. After several hours, you arrive within 2 miles of their nearest village. From there, you spot smoke rising from what might be multiple campfires and hear the driving rhythm of ranks of great war drums. Sounds like something's up. To have one of the squad climb a tree to get a better view, go to 118. To try and sneak closer to the village, go to 80. So if I was playing maybe a very stealthy character as a main character, like some kind of a roguish thief character, I would probably go with the sneaking closer option. But Barn, our barbarian, who is our squad leader, is not particularly stealthy. So maybe we'll just climb a tree and see if we can get a better view. So we're going to go to 118. And this would be a good time to take down notes of what we have been doing. So we started from we started from 001, and then we went on to number 78, and now we're going to go on to 118. And then I have the blue pin here whenever we get something special, like when we get character points or we get a plot ward or something like that. All right, so let's turn to 118 and see what is going to happen there. From the treetop, your spy sees the village about 2 miles away. It's a primitive settlement of several dozen longhouses built on stilts, partly shrouded by smoke from peat bog fires. Normally, it has 60 or 70 residents. Now surrounding it are the tents of hundreds more lizard folk. Still more arrive as you watch. You can see a contingent coming up a trail toward the village. It seems all of the lizard folk tribes of the swamp have sent warriors here. You also make out what might be a few carts or wagons and some other figures that look smaller than lizard folk. From this distance, you can't really be sure. Perhaps the lizard folk plan a major raid into the kingdom, or maybe several tribes are going to war against another. To look for a safe way to get closer, go to 80. If you think sneaking closer is too dangerous with lizard folk arriving, or prefer to head back to Cedar to report, go to 18. All right, so this is interesting because we can clearly see that there is some kind of a buildup going on here. It's certainly an eventful time for the lizard folk, and they even saw some other smaller figures in there, so there could be possible other forces that are joining them. So I think given the possible importance of the situation, even though we are not particularly good at sneaking, we're going to try to go ahead and get closer and take a look, because this could be really important to know what's going on so that we can warn our military camp. So let's go to 80. And I'm going to note it down over here that we went to number 80. So 80, from your current position, it appears the best vantage point to see the village up close without being spotted is Egg Rock, a tree-lined hill that overlooks the village. Do you recall anything about it? Any of theology, hidden lore, lizard folk, or research might apply. Or for most common soldiers, a challenging roll versus IQ -6, if successful, you would go to 60. Otherwise, you would go to 13. So we do not have the theology, hidden lore, lizard folk, or the research skill. So if we had one of our characters had one of those skills, we could make a roll against that and see if we could find out something here. But for a standard soldier, we would have to roll a challenging roll, which is IQ -6. So that would be a really, really tough roll to do. I believe Barn has an IQ of 10, so he's not exactly. Actually, everyone in our party has an IQ of 10. So you'd be trying to with a penalty of 6, you'd be trying to roll a 4 or under, which is extremely difficult on a 3d6. But we will go ahead and try it because we don't really have any other options. So we're going to be trying to roll a 4 or under on a 3d6. And oh my God, we have rolled a 3. I cannot believe that. That is crazy. That's only maybe the second or third time I've ever rolled a 3 in all the time that I've played Dungeon Fantasy. So, all right. So Barn is having a good day today. He rolled a 3 on his IQ check, and we're gonna go to 60 and see what we have there. So I'm gonna make a note of that. That we went on to 60, and yeah, we rolled a critical success there. Pretty impressive. Okay, 60. The lizard folks' village lies in the shadow of Egg Rock, a wooded hill named for an odd rock formation they hold sacred. The reptiles' rock formation the reptiles avoid it except on holy days during the full moon. No one should be there this time of month. Of course, if they catch you defiling their sacred ground, they are not going to be happy. To climb Egg Rock, go to 13, and to turn back, go to 8. And note plot word bro. So we actually got a plot word here. So you can see there that when you do pass some of these skill checks, you have an opportunity to get a plot word. So I'm going to note down here that we have plot word bro. And I think what we want to do is we want to climb the rock because, you know, we made it this far. We might as well see if we can climb the rock and find something out. So we're going to go to 13. So I note that down that we moved to 13. You cautiously climb the wooded slopes of Egg Rock. Near the summit is a big quartz boulder resembling a giant egg. Now you remember, this symbolizes the divine egg local lizard folk faith considers sacred. In any event, from behind the boulder, you now have a clear view of the lizard folk village. Looks like something's happening there. Go to 50. All right, so we can clearly see that there is something important going on in the village from the top of this rock. And now we're going to go over to 50. And we see here that several hundred lizard folk from many clans are encamped around the village. A feast or ceremony is occurring. You see them roasting what looks like a griffin. One of the squad, Soto Voce, mutters, "Biggest drumsticks I've ever seen," as the once noble creature is turned into a feast for the lizard folk throng. Okay, so there's where our griffin rider went. Or at least the griffin anyway. Moving among the lizard folk are a dozen or more humans and orcs in black armor. You recognize the uniform of the Dark Legion, the Overlord's army. Accompanying them are 4 saurian-drawn carts filled with gear. The legionaries are distributing weapons and armor to the lizard folk. All right, so they are clearly building up a massive military force here. Record the plot word dark. Go to 39 if you wish to continue observing their ceremonies to get a better count of their numbers. If you've seen enough and you want to bug out now with your intelligence, go to 18. Yeah, I'm not sure what we want to do here. I have to think about that for a second, but I'm going to go ahead and record that plot word dark. So we now have 2 plot words, and each plot word, like I said, it can allow you to possibly unlock other parts of the story later. So they're nice to use for that. And they give you 5 character points. So we've already earned 10 character points. But you can only use character points to improve your characters when you have the opportunity to rest. So it has to be some kind of a rest, which the text will let you know that you are having a rest period. All right, let's go ahead and I think we've got enough intelligence at this point to let them know what's going on. So we're going to go ahead and go to 18. So we abandoned the observation post and we climbed down from the egg rock slope, and then let's go to we're going to go to 8. So we went to 18, and now we're going to go to 8. You retreated before being noticed by the lizard folk and their allies, but the swampy woods are still swarming with hostile troops. As afternoon turns to evening, you escape the swampy forest, following trails you know well from prior patrols. Make a navigation roll at -4. Any of tracking, stealth, or tactics may be used as complementary skill rolls. On a failure, go to 91. On a success, to 114. Success by 2+ to 44. Okay, so we have some cool mechanics that can come up here. Now, in this case, I do believe that Barn may have navigation. Yeah, so Barn does have the navigation skill. He has a navigation skill of 11. But we would have to roll at a -4. I believe that's probably due to the darkness. And now with the complementary skill roll, if you have other characters who have tracking, stealth, or tactics, they can possibly use those to help you. I would also consider navigation as well. So we do have tactics here on Misery. We have navigation on Hawk. And that's probably all going to be all that we have there. So if we go ahead and roll against their skill, then if we get a critical success, it's a +2. And if we get a standard success, it's a +1. So we could get as much as a +4 bonus to our navigation roll, to Barnes' navigation roll, if we were to roll 2 critical successes on both of these guys. And obviously that's probably not going to be very likely, but if they can both get a success on their skill check, then that's going to be a +1. So let's roll for Misery here. We're going to roll for tactics. And he has got a tactics of 10, so he's going to have to roll a 10 or less here. and that is not going to be good enough. That's going to be like a 14 there, so we will not get a +1 from Misery. But let's see if Hawk will be able to give us a +1. And Hawk has the actually we could roll against tracking. So let's roll against tracking here. It's going to be a 14. So if we can roll a 14 or less, and that's going to be a 7. So that we will get a +1 there. So Hawk is going to contribute a +1 to Barn here. So Barn's navigation is 11. He's going to have a -4 due to the darkness. So that's going to be down to a 7, but we have a +1 from Hawk, so it's going to be an 8. So this is a pretty tough roll to get an 8 or less on a 3d6. And that is a 15, so we did not get it. So we are going to, on a failure, we're going to go to 91. So let's go ahead and go to 91. Going to write that down on our notes, and then we will turn to 91 and see what we have here. So your squad tried its best to outrun and outfox their pursuers, but the lizard folk hunters know the region as well as you do, maybe better. You're 2 miles from Cedar when lizard folk hunters burst out of the undergrowth. 3 fleet-footed young scouts eager for their first kill. Fortunately, the veteran warriors were left behind during the rapid pursuit. They try and ambush you. Roll a quick contest of the scout's stealth, 14 versus your squad's best hearing or vision. If the lizard folk win, the defenders suffer from mental stun. And the fight's going to occur on map 2, and if they ambush you, your squad can't act until they make an IQ roll to snap out of mental stun. You would have to roll at +6 for combat reflexes. Okay, so if combat reflexes is a really nice skill to have. It can help you out a lot with ambushes. So then it tells you how you can set up your fight. So let's deal with this ambush first. And so the lizards have a stealth of 14. That's pretty good. So we need to look at our best hearing or vision. Let's see what we have. 12 vision and hearing with Barn. 12 with Hawk. 12 with Misery. And 10 with Gentry. So we might as well just roll Barn because everyone is pretty much the same there. So 12 versus 14. This is going to be pretty tough here. Okay, so to roll a quick contest, first the lizards are going to roll against their stealth, which is 14, and assuming they don't fail the roll, we're going to look at by how many points do they succeed in the roll, and then we're going to roll against our vision and hearing, which is 12, and assuming that we succeed, we're going to look at how many points that we succeed by, and whoever succeeds by the most value, assuming that both sides succeed, that will be the one that would win the quick contest. So first let's roll for the lizards. And the lizards are going to roll a 15, which means that actually they fail in their stealth check. Now all we have to do is simply pass our check, and just passing it would be enough to not be ambushed here. And we have rolled a 12, so we have passed our check, so we are not going to be ambushed, and that is excellent. But now we're going to need to set up this fight here, and the fight is going to occur on map 2, and we don't have to worry about the ambush, and it tells you where you can set up your squad. The shaded hexes are bushes, and they count as 2 hexes for ground movement, and throw missile weapon attacks into them gain a defense bonus of +2, so you can cover yourself in the trees a little bit. And your squad's going to set up within 2 hexes of any T hex facing W, and you place the lizard folk in the W hexes, and it's a fight to the death. And then they tell you where you should go if you win. So we're going to be fighting these lizard folk hunters right here. So let's go to take a look at what map 2 looks like. And that is, there's going to be map 2 right here. So this is kind of a rough, idea of how you want your battlefield to look. And I have my little battlefield, which I'm going to set up right now. All right, so this is my little approximation of the map 2 that we have here in the book. And we've got the lizards set up on this side, which would be the W hexes. And then we have our squad set up on this side, which would be the T hexes. And actually, I believe Barn should probably be right there. So we've got everybody set up right there. And we could actually go into the trees to get some cover. But luckily, we were not ambushed. So I think it's probably going to be in our interest just to rush down and face them as quickly as possible, because we do have a numerical advantage. And as it says in the text, these guys are some plucky rookie lizards who are kind of over anxious to fight us. And then I have a little lizard folk card here. And so these guys are all the same. They're all the hunters. So we can just use this one card basically to know what we need to know about their stats. So the first thing that you're going to want to do when you have a combat is you're going to want to establish your initiative. And you're going to do that by looking at your speed. And the highest speed that we have in our squad, in our party, is a speed of 6, which Gintry and Barn both have a speed of 6, and then Gintry has the dex of 13, so that would mean that Gintry is our fastest. But if you look at the hunters here, they've got a speed of 6.5, so that means the hunters are just automatically better than us. We don't even have to compare the dexterity. So the hunters are all going to be going first. They're pretty fast. Okay, and so what I'm going to be using to track our turns and initiative is this app here, which is called Initiative Plus. And like most apps, it's actually made for D&D. It's not made for generic RPGs or any other RPGs, but I have figured out a way where I can enter this information in and have it properly set up a turn order, and as well as I can track at least the positive HP values. Now, Dungeon Fantasy does also have negative HP values that you have to deal with, but at least for the basic purpose of tracking their health before it goes to negative, I can track that in here, and I can also track their armor values. What I've done is I've entered in their torso armor value, because in Dungeon Fantasy you can have different armor values for different parts. And also, with some of these you'll see like Misery and Gentry, they have 31 or 42 for their armor, and it doesn't mean that they have 31 armor, but what it means is that for some damage types, her armor would count as 3, and for some damage types, her armor would count as 1. Usually it's going to be for crushing damage, it would count as 1. So anyway, I've entered all of them in, the lizard folk and our party, and then we can start the fight. And it's automatically adjusted everything based on the proper initiative order. And so now it is the lizard folk hunter. It's their first turn to go right now. So let's start off with this first lizard folk hunter up here in the front. And the lizard folk are equipped with the staff sling, and just because the staff sling is really kind of their main weapon, that's really what they are meant to do. I'm going to go ahead and say that their staff sling is already in their hand, so we don't need to take a turn for them to equip the staff sling, because that is going to be their primary weapon. And I'm saying the same for our party as well. Everyone's primary weapon is going to be automatically equipped, so we don't need to take a turn for that. And I'm also saying the same for the party dropping their equipment, because this is not an ambush situation. So we kind of dispense with the formalities, and everyone has their standard weapon in their hand and ready to go. And of course, the same for the lizards, the same for us. So we have fairness with that, but it just allows us to skip a little bit of formalities. But if you say your standard weapon was a sword, and you decided that for the beginning of this fight you wanted to have a throwing axe equipped, or you wanted to have a sling equipped, then you would need to take a turn to go ahead and change that out. So if you're not staying with your default loadout, that is something that you do need to take a turn, what they call a ready action in Dungeon Fantasy. But we're going to let everyone start off right away, ready to fight, and it's not an ambush situation. So both parties met each other fairly, and they're ready to go. So now the lizard folk hunter, they're going to want to attack with their staff sling, and for the lizard here in the back, he would have a little bit of a disadvantage attacking with his ally in front of him. So he would probably want to move out of the way. But for these two lizards here, they can simply go ahead and attack right now. So we'll go ahead and have this lizard here in the front. He's going to attack. This is Misery right here, the knight. And let's see what he needs to do. So his staff sling skill is 16. And he's going to need to roll against a 16 to pull off that skill. So a good player aid that you would want to look at when you're determining what you're going to be doing on a turn would be your maneuvers table, because depending on what kind of attack you do, you may or may not be able to move very much. And in this case, I think the lizard doesn't want to move because he wants to maintain his distance, and he'll have to leave it up for the lizard behind him to move to the side or somewhere else if he wants to attack without the obstruction in front of him. But this lizard is ready just to attack right now. And if he wanted to, he could go for an all-out attack, but that might be a little bit risky, because if one of our characters is able to move up and attack at the same time, he would have no defense. And so you can do what's called a move and attack, which is where you would move and attack on the same turn. And if he did an all-out attack, he would not be able to have any kind of defense at all against that attack. So it's a bit reckless to do an all-out attack. If you are certain that no one else is going to be able to attack you next round, either from range or from melee distance, then you could go for an all-out attack. But that would be a bit reckless, so we're not going to make them reckless here. And we'll just have him do a standard attack. So he is going to... and actually, he could aim as well, because he's using a ranged weapon. So if we wanted to, we could have him aim here, and he would be able to get an accuracy bonus. He has an accuracy bonus of 1 if he wanted to aim. Now, we can determine how important would it be for him to get an accuracy bonus. So right here we have the GURPS ruler, and I will put a link to this in the description. And the GURPS ruler, the range ruler, is going to help you to calculate your penalty for range, and this is based on your distance. So if we measure from the head of the lizard here to Misery, our character, we can see that he is going to have a -2 penalty. So even though his skill is 16, he would have a -2 penalty to attack there. And another thing that we have to look at as well is right here where it says shots, and it might be a little bit small for you to read there. I don't know if the camera will focus on that. See if it's better, if it's any more clearer here. Now, if you see here where it says shots, and it says 1, and then it has a 2 in the ellipses there. And shots 1 means that it can fire 1 shot per round, and 2 means that it takes 2 rounds to ready it. Now, there are some skills that you can have that allow you to quick draw a weapon, a ranged weapon, and allow you to speed up that process. But the lizard folks do not have that. So what they need to do, they need to take 1 round to load all their weapons, basically load and prep their weapons. So their weapon is in their hand, but they have to load it before they fire. And if you wanted to aim, you would need to take another round on top of that. So they would need to take, another turn. Each lizard would need to take 2 turns if they wanted to load their weapon and aim and then fire. And that would give them the aiming bonus. But I think in this case, we probably won't wait that long. We'll try to have them attack sooner. But they all do need to load their weapon before they can fire. But if they had a fast draw skill, they could load the weapon and fire all in the same turn. But that would be without the accuracy bonus. So basically, all the lizards are going to be loading up their weapons, loading up their slings. So that's gonna take up the entire turn of all 3 of the lizards, because turns in Dungeon Fantasy are 1 second. So you only have what you can do in 1 second, unless you have some special highly trained skills that allow you to speed that process up. So we will end the turn for the first lizard folk there, and for the second. And the third one, actually, I believe the third one, we're going to have the third one step out so that they have more of a clear shot on what they can hit. Now, we have to look at their moves. So they have a move of 6. So this one could move 1, 2, and then they would be standing there, and then they would spend 1 more point to turn, so that'd be 3. So whenever you when you change facing, that's typically going to count as 1. Although if you do an all-out move, you get 1 free facing change at the end. And there are some other small details with facing that I haven't completely memorized, but generally when you change facing, it's going to be counting as 1. So that would be a 3 right there. And then I believe that he can still also begin to load his weapon. So all 3 of them are loading their weapon, and all 3 of them will be ready to fire next turn. All right, so now with our party, Gentry is going to be first. So let's take a look at Gentry, and we want to look at probably at Gentry's basic move. So Gentry's basic move is 6, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It'd be about 5 if we wanted to get up to this first lizard here. And seeing as they're all about to employ their staff sling, their ranged weapon, we probably want to close distance as fast as possible, because that's essentially going to deny them their ability to use their ranged weapon. So we will go ahead and have Gentry move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right up here. Straight shot to this first lizard. And if we want to, we can have Gentry do what is called a move and attack. And that would mean that you can move up to your full movement. So that would be up to 6 points. We moved 5. But in the next turn, you cannot retreat. You can't, and you cannot parry or block with the attacking hand. Now, one thing about Gentry is that Gentry is a swashbuckler, and actually in her offhand she has a shield, so she could still block with her shield if she wanted to. And so we're not too concerned about her using her main hand to attack here with the move and attack. Another thing about move and attack is that you also have a -4 penalty to your attack. So if we look at Gentry's character sheet here, in her main hand, she's going to be using the light-edged rapier, and that is a 17 skill, which is pretty high, but we are going to take a -4 penalty to that. So that's going to drop us down to 13 there. So if we can get a 13 or better, then she will be able to have a successful attack here. And we got a 13. So we got a successful attack. Now the lizard is going to get a chance to defend. And so we want to look at what skills he has. So he could parry or he could dodge. And he also has a damage resistance of 1. So if in the event that he is hit, he will be able to absorb 1 damage. So in this case, it's probably going to be better for him to dodge, because I don't know if he can parry actually with the staff sling. And with certain weapons, if you try to parry with like a ranged weapon, either you can't parry at all, or you have maybe some kind of a penalty, or you would have to parry with your hand. And if you parry with your hands, you're definitely going to have a penalty. So I think that the best thing for the lizard would be to go ahead and go with a dodge. So they're going to want to roll a 9 or less to get a dodge here. And that is going to be too high there. So they're definitely not going to be dodging. So in this case, Gentry will hit, and we're going to roll for the damage. Now we can look here at the light edge rapier. We're going to be doing a swing, and that's going to be 2d plus 2 cutting damage. And that's with a reach of 1, so that means that we can attack from one hex away, as we are. So let's roll 2d plus 2. And that's going to be 8. And then plus 2 would be 10. And then, as I said, the lizard folk has a 1 DR. I think that's due to... I think it's due to the fact that they have thick skin, or maybe they do actually have some kind of armor. But anyway, they have a 1 DR, so that means that our damage would be reduced from 10 down to 9, and then that 9 points is going to be penetrating damage, which is going to be a wound. and wounding damage. So whenever you penetrate armor, that becomes a wounding damage. And this is cutting. So different kinds of damage in Dungeon Fantasy have different wound multipliers. And so we can look on our sheet here on our player aids, and I believe one of these does tell you about the wound modifiers. Let's see if I can find that. Oh, it might actually be this one that's down here. Yeah, here we go. Here's our wounding modifiers. So if we look at cutting, so basically a cutting shot to anywhere other than the neck of the skull. So we're going to say that it's to the torso in this case. A cutting attack to the torso is going to be a 1.5 modifier. So we would take 9, and half of 9 rounded down is going to be 4. So you would add 4, so that's going to be 13 damage. And if we look at the health of the Lizardfolk Hunter, they have an HP of 13, so that's effectively going to reduce their hit points to 0. And what happens whenever someone, a monster or your character, whenever they take half or more of their hit points in one blow, that is called a major wound or a major injury. And so you have to roll for a knockdown, because whenever you suffer a major injury, you have to see if you can stay on your feet. So in this case, they'd be rolling against a 13, because you roll against your HT, which is your health. So if they roll a 13 or under, then they will not collapse immediately from the blow. And it looks like that's going to be a 12. So the Lizard Hunter will in fact collapse. And so they have collapsed from that blow. And their HP has been reduced to 0. So we'll go here into the Hunter, and we're going to manage the HP. They took 13 points of damage, and so they are now down to 0 HP, but they are not dead. And even though they have been knocked down, they are not dead. Death doesn't happen immediately in Dungeon Fantasy RPG just because you are at 0 health. It takes a little bit more than that to die. And now that they are at 0 HP, they need to roll versus HT every turn to avoid unconsciousness. And at their next turn, they would roll against their HT, their health, to see if they fall unconscious or not. But now with the knockdown, they are now going to be stunned. So failure is going to cause a knockdown, and you will fall prone, and you drop anything that you're holding, and you automatically are stunned. And right here is stun. A failed knockdown roll will cause stun, and you may perform any active defense while stunned, but defense rolls are at -4, and you cannot retreat or use acrobatic dodge. And then on your next turn, you must choose a do nothing maneuver and try an HT roll. Success removes the defense restrictions and lets you act normally. So their next turn, they automatically can't do anything. And if they do succeed in an HT roll, then they can shake off the effects of stun. So stun is on top of the fact that they're at 0 HP and must roll for HT every turn to see if they do not fall unconscious. So quite a lot of things happen to you when you suffer a heavy blow in Dungeon Fantasy, and there's a very detailed damage system in the game, as you can see. All right, so that takes care of the first turn there with the Lizardfolk Hunter. And one thing that actually the Lizardfolk Hunter could have done is they could have done a retreat dodge, which actually gives you a +1 to dodge, and they would retreat back 1 square. So that actually might have been a better thing to do. Okay, so actually a retreat dodge is going to give you +3 to dodge. So that would actually be what we probably should have done with that lizard, but we will do it with the next attack. We will do the retreat dodge. So at least this way you get to see an example of what happens when you don't dodge and you take a hefty blow and you get knocked down. So now we're going to go to our next combatant here, which is probably going to be Barn. So Gentry is going to end the turn, and now Barn is going to come out and set up his turn, and probably once again is going to want to attack, but we'll see if he can move into position. Now he's going to have a move of 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So he could move 4 up to this lizard man here, this lizard folk. And now in this case, if the lizard folk decides to dodge, they're going to do a retreat dodge, and that will give them a bonus. So we'll have Barn do a move and attack. So he's going to attack with a -4, and he's going to do a two-handed swing, which has a skill of 16. So he needs to roll a 12 or better because of the -4 penalty for move and attack. And yeah, he's got that. He's rolled a 9, so no problem there. And now the lizard folk is going to do a retreat dodge. So they're going to have a 9 + 3. So that's going to give them a dodge score of 12. So they need to roll a 12 or under here. And that's an 11. All right, so they will dodge. They will step back, and they will dodge. Now, one cool thing that you can do, in this case, Barn is not going to be able to do it because Barn already did already moved over half of his move. But if Barn had maybe started from the square and had not moved and just attacked, every turn you can take a free step. So he could automatically take a free step and close distance even before his turn comes back around. But because he already used his move and didn't have all of his move points available, he's not able to automatically take that free step. But it's very cool that you can have characters sort of automatically dodging and stepping, and it creates this sort of realistic feeling of the characters kind of, backing other characters into corners, because obviously in fighting, it's very common for a pursuer to be chasing someone who maybe isn't as skilled, and they're trying to back away, and that's why getting backed into a corner in a fight is very dangerous. So in this case, they are now going to be pretty much backed into a corner, but Barn will not be able to press the attack right now. So that's going to end Barn's turn, and then we'll go over to Hawk. Now Hawk has a bow, and if Hawk was to fire from here, Hawk is pretty much going to have an obstruction because he's got Gentry and Barn are in the way of his attack. So Hawk is pretty much going to want to move. And I think he'll go ahead and move 1, 2, and 3. And then 4, he'll turn here. And from here, then he can go ahead and set up his attack. Now, he's got a few more options available to him, because just like the hunters, he also has to take time to ready his weapon. But because he has the fast draw arrow skill, he can actually ready his weapon as a free action. He can load the weapon as a free action. Not completely ready it, but he can at least load it as a free action, because this bow that he has actually takes 3 turns, I believe, to prepare normally. But he has she has fast draw, so she can use fast draw here. And she also has, I believe she's got a heroic archer skill. Maybe not. No, it looks like no. But if she had the heroic archer skill, she could also use that to speed up the readying action as well. But since this is a free action, we can go ahead and roll the fast draw arrow right now. So we're going to be rolling against 13. And that's gonna be good right there. Got a 9. So that means that Hawk has the bow loaded, and then next turn Hawk would pull back the bow, and then the turn after that Hawk could fire. But if you have the heroic archer skill, then you can actually speed all that up down into 1 turn, and you can fire every turn basically. So So anyway, Hawk is one step closer now to being able to attack. And that's going to end Hawk's turn. And then we'll go to Misery. And let's see what Misery can do here. So Misery's got a move of 4. And he's a little bit more encumbered because of he's wearing the heavy knight armor. And with a move of 4, I think he's not going to be able to get into range of anyone right now, but it's always good to close distance. So he's going to move 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. So he's just going to work on closing distance there with the lizardmen. And that is going to end the first turn. So we end the first turn, and now our lizard folk that has been knocked down, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to roll against their health to see if they remain conscious. And it looks like they will. That's going to be an 8, so they will remain conscious. They rolled well under 13. And now they cannot do anything on their turn, but they can roll to see if they can get out of the effects of stun. And that is a 13, so they will. So they are not stunned anymore, but they are still laying prone. They still need to take a turn to get up and grab their weapon as well. So it's going to be at least one more turn until they can stand up again and continue with their attacks. But they are not dead, as you can see, even though they are at 0. Okay, now we're going to have the next lizard folk, which is going to be this guy right here. And what he's going to do is he's going to switch over to his melee weapon is going to switch over to his falchion here. And that's going to take 1 turn to ready the falchion. You can have a quick draw sword skill, but it looks like he doesn't have that. So it will take 1 turn to ready the falchion. So he's going to be readying that. And now we'll go over to our third lizard here. And this one can actually go ahead and fire the staff sling because he has completed the loading action and nobody interrupted him or anything like that. So he's got the loading action completed, and he's going to attack here on Misery. And so let's roll for his attack, and we will want to measure the distance penalty. And it looks like it's going to be a -2. It's pretty close to a 1 there, but we'll say it's a -2. So it's going to be rolling against his staff sling of 16. So he's got to get a 14 or better here. And he's done it. That's a 10, so no problem there. Now, in this case, Misery is probably going to want to block with his shield. So if we look at his small buckler skill, he has a block skill of 11. So if he can roll an 11 or under, then he'll be able to block the arrow with his shield. And that's going to be a 12. So he will not block it. And we're going to say that the staff sling is going to hit him in the torso. Now, he does have 4 points of armor there, so that will be able to absorb some of the damage. Let's look at the damage of the staff sling. It's going to be 1d -1 cutting. Or no, sorry, that's the wrong thing. It's going to be 2d piercing. And piercing is a little bit more dangerous. It has a higher damage modifier typically. So we'll roll 2d there, and that's going to be 10. And with the armor of 4, it's going to suffer 6 points of damage, and 6 points of that damage is going to be wounding damage. It's going to penetrate his armor, and this is also piercing damage. And piercing, so this is standard piercing, I believe. There's a few different kinds of piercing. It looks like standard piercing damage. So standard piercing damage is simply going to use a ×1 modifier. So it is going to be 6 damage. So right now, Misery is going to take 6 points of damage. So we'll punch that in. Misery is now down to 7. And that is not going to be half of Misery's full health points. If it was half, he would have to make the knockdown check. So he doesn't need to make the knockdown check right now. But he still took a pretty good shot right there. And I'm having all the damage go to the torso, but if you add in the hit locations as well, which you target those specifically, so we could say the lizard is going to target the head. He would have a penalty to try to target the head, but he could also do more damage. Or you can there's also a system where you can randomize where certain shots hit, kind of to simulate a certain level of realism, because you don't always know exactly where the shot's going to hit. If maybe you're not aiming it, you're just trying to hit them in any way at all. So I'm not introducing those into this right now, just to keep things a little bit faster and a little bit more basic for this play right now. But those systems are very cool, and I like using them, and that could make something like this more deadly as well if it hits you in the head, the face, the neck, something like that. All right, so that's going to complete the turns for the lizards, and now it is going to be it's going to be Gentry's turn now. So Gentry is probably going to want to move over and attack this lizard here, to deny him the ability to do any kind of ranged attack on the next turn. Although he would have to take one turn to load his weapon anyway. But since this one is already knocked down, now he will possibly be able to get he will be able to get back up next turn. But we'll have Gentry go ahead and move over one and attack this lizard. So you can take one free step on a turn. So we're going to take one free step, and then Gentry is going to do a standard attack here, and that's going to be a 14, and I think that will still hit. Yeah, so Gentry has a 17 on the light rapier swing, so that's still going to hit. And this lizard does not have the ability to do a retreat dodge because they are at the edge of the map here. So they are basically backed against a imaginary wall here, so to speak. So they're going to have to get a 9 or under, and it looks like they've done it. It looks like they have got a 9, so they will be able to successfully dodge that. So a nice dodge there from the lizard. So the lizard will carry on to fight some more. Gentry is pretty deadly with that rapier, as you have seen. Okay, so we'll end our turn there. Now Barn is going to go ahead and step forward and attack this lizard here, who also does not have the ability to retreat anymore, as he is also kind of against the imaginary wall here. So let's roll for Barnes' attack, and that is going to be a 12, which should be good enough. I think Barnes got a pretty good skill level with his longsword, 16 for a two-handed swing. All right. Now he's going to need to roll a 9 again to dodge here, and that is going to be too high. So we'll roll for Barnes' attack, which is going to be a 2d plus 1 cutting, and that is 5, 6. That's going to be 6. Now they do have 1 armor, so that's going to be a total damage of 5 will penetrate the armor. And then now with cutting has a 1.5 modifier. So half of 5 rounded down is going to be 2, so it's going to be 7 damage. And this second lizard folk here is going to take 7 damage. And I believe that is going to be equal to half or more of their damage there, of their health bar. So they will have to make a knockdown check. So we're going to roll against their health, and that is going to be good enough because their health is 13. So a 9, they will remain standing, and they will not be stunned. So that's going to complete Barnes' turn, and then we'll go over to Hawk. So now Hawk has a line of sight to attack here, and let's see. I think this turn Hawk is going to be drawing the weapon. Let's see. Okay, so yeah, this turn, or actually no, the composite bow has a it is a 2 turns to ready, as you can see here in the ellipses. So with 2 turns to ready, then he will be able to fire this turn, because the first turn we loaded it, and so now I believe that he can fire now, or maybe he gets 1 more turn to ready. Okay, yeah. So the two is going to mean that it's going to be 1 more turn to ready. It takes 2 turns to ready. So now he's simply going to be drawing the bow back, and then he'll be able to fire next turn. And once again, you really want to try to get the heroic archer skill on your character, because it will help out a lot with readying it. All right, so I think that's going to complete Hawk's turn, and then we'll go over to Misery, and Misery will probably have Misery walk forward 1, 2. So he'll step forward 2, and he's probably going to attack this lizard folk on the ground. And one thing about Misery is that he has the bloodlust trait, which means that he wants to attack and kill anybody that he faces. So he's not happy with them being incapacitated. He also wants to kill them. So now this one is actually not stunned any longer, but for bloodlust, we would have to make a roll against a 9, and if he failed in that, then he would be forced to attack this lizard here. But once again, this lizard is not stunned. He is just merely laying prone right now. He's not unconscious or stunned, but otherwise, Misery would have to make this what they call a self-control roll here for his bloodlust. And but anyway, Misery is going to go ahead and attack him, because he's simply on the ground, and he can get up next turn. So it's a good chance for him to attack right now. And because he is prone, there is going to be some defense penalties. He's lying prone, so he's going to take a -3 to defense. So, and the other thing is that Misery knows that, because he's lying prone, we don't have to worry about him being able to attack us next turn. So we can also do an all-out attack. And with an all-out attack, we could do what they call a strong attack, where it is that you would get a +2. So right here, an all-out attack strong, you can make a single attack at normal skill, and if you hit, you get +2 damage, or +1 damage per die if it's better. So we don't need to worry about defending next turn, because this lizard next turn, at the minimum, they're going to have to stand up and pick up their weapon. So let's go ahead and roll here. And so that's going to be a 12. No, sorry, a 13. And that should be enough for Misery to get off an attack here. Yep, he's got a skill of 14 with his swing. So it's going to be a defense roll by the lizard here at a -3. And that's going to be 8, 9. Now he would have to get a 6 or better, so he will not be able to dodge there. And yeah, he would actually be dodging on the ground by trying to roll away, but he'd have to roll a 6 or better to do that. So Misery will hit, and he's going to roll a 2d +1 cutting. And that's going to be 7, 8. Now he's got 1 point of armor, so 7 is going to get through. And then cutting is going to be a 1.5 modifier. Half of 7 is going to be 3 rounded down, so that's going to be 10. So it'll be 10 damage to that lizard there. So he is now going to be at -10 health. So we're going to put here that the yellow lizard is now at -10 HP, because I can't track negative health with the app, unfortunately. So now that blow also was equal to half of his health. So he will have to make another knockdown check, and that's going to be a 7. So he will survive that knockdown check. That was against his health, which was 13. Okay, so the lizard survived the knockdown check, but he is now at minus 10 health. And if he gets to a multiple of ×1 or ×2 or ×3 of his health, he has to make an immediate death save. So his health is 13. So if he gets down to negative 13 or below, he will have to make an immediate death save as well. And we'll go through that when that does happen, if that happens. Because a lot of times what you'll see in Dungeon Fantasy is that you can win a fight without actually killing anyone. A lot of times you're just incapacitating most of the foes that you face, depending on how things go in the fight. So that's going to end Misery's turn. And we'll go back to the first lizard folk here. And he has to make a check versus health to see if he is going to fall unconscious. And he has rolled a 10 there, so he's going to be fine. He will not fall unconscious. And he survived the knockdown check, so he's not stunned. So now he's going to pick up his weapon, and he's going to stand up. So he is now standing. He will not be able to do anything else this turn, but he is now standing. Next turn, he would be able to attack, barring anything else happening to him there. So now we will go over to the lizard folk hunter, the second one, which is going to be the green one here, and he is going to last turn he readied his falchion, and now he's going to be able to attack Barn here. So he's going to be rolling against and he's going to be rolling against a 13 for his falchion skill here. And it looks like he's done it. He's got a 9, so he will succeed with his falchion. And now for Barn, we're probably going to want to have Barn go with a parry right here. He has a parry skill of 11. And now Barn does not have a shield, so he's not going to try to block with the shield. And if he wanted to dodge, his dodge would be 9. So we're going to go ahead with the parry. That's our best option. And he has rolled a 12, so he will not parry that. And the lizard folk is going to hit him with the falchion, and that's going to be 2d cutting damage. Let's see here. Yeah, 2d cutting damage. So that's going to be 6. And if we look at Barn's armor in the torso, he has 3. So 3 damage is going to get through. And then 3, half of 3 rounded down is going to be 1. So that's going to be 4 damage to Barn. So Barn will now take 4 points of cutting damage to the torso. And then we will continue on with the final lizard folk here. And he is he also let's see, last turn, did he ready his weapon last turn? I believe he did. So he readied his weapon last turn, and now he's going to attack Gentry here with the falchion. And that is going to be 9, 10, 11. So that will be a successful attack there. Now Gentry will probably try to parry here, but she could also block as well. Let's see, what would her block be? So she would have a block of 15. So yeah, we'll probably want to go ahead and go with a block. Now you could also run her with the configuration of having the main gosh. If that's how you say that, main gosh. But I'm running her with the shield configuration, so she is going to be a little bit more defensive this way. Even though the main gosh does have some bonuses to parrying as well, but I do like to use the shield. So that's going to be a 9. So we will block with the shield. I'm making sure that's the right skill for her shield. I believe shield. I don't know if her block is actually that high. Okay, so her block is actually a skill. She actually has a block of 10. And oh, here we go. Yeah, sorry, I was reading the wrong thing. There's a block of 10. So she does still succeed with this 9. She's still going to be able to block that. So she will block that hunter's attack. And then now Gentry is going to take her turn. So she will go with a standard attack here. and that is going to be an 8. And then the lizard is going to go with a standard dodge, and that's going to be a 12, which is going to be too high. They have a dodge of 9. So Gentry will do some damage here. We're going to roll 2d plus 2 for the cutting damage. That's going to be 6, 7, 8. 1 damage will be reduced for the armor. So 7 will get through. And then we multiply that by 1.5 for the cutting. And so we had oh, let's see here. What did we have? So we have 6 and 7, 8, 7. So half of 7 is going to be 3. So that's going to be a total of 10 damage here to the lizard folk. So he's going to drop down to, I believe, 3 health. Yep, he's going to be down to 3 health. So that is also more than half of his health bar. So he's going to have to make a knockdown check versus health. And he has rolled a 12 there. So he will succeed in that knockdown check. So he's still on his feet. No problem. And that's going to take care of Gentry's turn. Now Barn is going to attack the green lizard folk here. And he is going to roll a 7. So that will be a successful attack for Barn with his two-handed sword. The lizard will roll a standard dodge. And he has rolled an 8. So that's 2 turns in a row that he has dodged Barn. So very good dodging for that lizard right there. And now Hawk, or did he dodge last turn? I can't remember. But anyway, I think it's 2 dodges that he's made. All right, now Hawk is finally going to be able to fire his bow. He's going to be firing at the lizard here. And he is going to have some range penalty here. It's going to be a -3. So Hawk is going to roll versus a -3. And Hawk's skill is 17, so he's going to have to get a 14 or under. And he's done it right there. He's got an 8. Now the lizard will have a chance to dodge. And I think the lizard may have a dodge penalty here for taking 2 dodges in 1 turn, but I'm not sure. Let me double check on that. All right, so there's no limit to how many times you can use dodge, and you do not suffer a penalty. So let's see if he can dodge out of the way of this arrow. And he has got an 11, and that's not going to be good enough because he's only got a dodge skill of 9. So he will be hit by the arrow. We'll roll damage for Hawk here. This is going to be, let's see, this is going to be 1d plus 4 impaling damage. Now, impaling damage is pretty serious if it penetrates armor. So even though it's only a 1d, this could be really damaging. Okay, so it's just a 1, so a very lucky roll for that lizard there. 1d plus 4, so that's going to be 5. The lizard will block 1 point with his armor, and so 4 is going to get through, and then I believe we're going to double that damage due to the effects of impaling. You can see here that impaling has a 2x modifier even against the torso, so that is going to be a total of 8 damage there that's going to be getting through on this lizard, and I think he already had suffered a hit. Yeah, so 8 damage. So that is going to bring him down to -2 on the green lizard. He's now at -2 HP, and he needs to make a knockdown roll because that was more than half of his HP. And he has rolled a 16, so he is going to be knocked down, and he is stunned. He is now stunned and knocked down. On his next turn, he's going to need to make an HT check at the start of his turn to see if he falls unconscious or not. So even though it took Hawk a long time to be able to get off his weapon, you can see there that even with a poor damage roll of a 1, he was still able to cause quite a lot of hurt to this lizard folk here. All right, now Misery is going to continue his attack against this lizard folk, and he's going to roll for What are we going to roll for here? We're going to roll for our broadsword, going with the broadsword swing. And that's going to be a 7, so that's a good roll there. And now the lizard is going to try to dodge, and he's got a 9, so he does dodge. So that lizard will dodge. Very nice dodge there for the lizard. And that's going to be this guy here. So he needs to make an immediate health check to see if he does not fall unconscious. That's a 9, 10, 11. So he will stay conscious there. Now he's going to attack with the falchion. And that is a 12, 13, 14. I believe his falchion is 13. So yeah, so he fails with his attack. All right, next lizard. That's going to be the green one here. He needs to make an immediate check against his health, and he does succeed there with a 6. So no problems. Now he cannot do anything for his turn, but he can roll a health check to see if he comes out of stun. 10, he is going to come out of stun. So he is no longer stunned, but he does have to wait till next turn to pick up his weapon and stand up. So then we'll go for the orange lizard there. And he is going to roll for his falchion. And, oh, sorry, actually, he needs to roll against his health. So let's roll that again. He needs to roll against his health here to see if he stays conscious or not, because he's at -2. And he's going to roll a 10, 11, 12. So he does stay conscious just by 1 point there. Now he'll roll for his falchion attack. And that is going to be a 11 there. And so his attack will be successful. We'll see if Gentry can block this with her, or maybe we'll have her parry, actually. I think parrying might be a better choice for her here. Let's take a look. So if we had her parry, yeah, she can parry at 11. The F means that it's a fencing parry. So she's going to parry at 11, and she has rolled a 10, so she will parry there. And the fencing parry does have some special rules to it. It has some advantages against certain types of weapons, I believe. Nothing that I think is going to come into play right now. But anyway, she does succeed in that parry. So now Gentry will attack the lizard with the orange lizard with her rapier, and that's going to be a 15. And that's a pretty high roll there, but I think she's going to make it. Yeah, she's got a 17 with her rapier, so no problem there. And the lizard's going to try to dodge. And he rolls a 9, so he dodges. Man, these lizards are just making all their dodges. Now, Barn. Now, he's going to get a... this lizard's going to have a defense penalty, so Barn has a really good chance here to get a good shot off. And, oh, that's a 15. I don't know if Barn's actually going to be able to attack with a 15. Let's see. Okay, 16, so he does get his attack off. Now, the lizard will have to dodge with a -3 penalty. And he has rolled a 10. And so he would have to roll under a 6 or under, so he will not be able to defend there. So Barn will roll 2d for damage. That's going to be 4. 4 plus 1 is going to be 5. 1 damage will be absorbed by the armor. So 4 damage will get through. Half of 4 is going to be 2, so that's 6. So that will be 6 damage to the green lizard. And the green lizard is now down to -8 HP. And that was not equal to half of his health, so he does not have to make a knockdown check there. All right, Hawk. Hawk, I believe, will go ahead and he will step 1, 2, turn 3, and then he will make a quick draw. Or sorry, she will make a quick draw check here. So a fast draw check, and she has rolled a 7, so that means that she's going to have her arrow loaded. And next turn, Hawk should be able to fire. And then we're going to go for Misery is going to attack the yellow lizard, who is already at -10. And Misery has rolled a 14. That might be too high. Let's see. Nope, Misery has 14 in the broadsword. So the lizard will try to go for a dodge. And 12, 16, that's not going to succeed in the dodge. So Misery will be successful. Misery is going to roll 2d plus 1 cutting. That's going to be 8, 9. 1 will be absorbed. 8 will get through. Half of 8 is 4. So it's going to be 12. And that'll be 12 damage to the yellow lizard, which is already at minus 10. So he's going to be at minus 22. And he needs to make an immediate death save here. And if he, I believe if he fails by, there's a certain amount that you don't want to fail by. So yeah, we're making immediate HT roll to avoid death. Roll again at minus, okay, so we're at the minus 1x HP. So let's roll against HT, and that is a 13, and that's equal to their HT, so they do not die right now. And then next turn, again, we'll have to roll to see if they remain conscious. So that lizard is not dead right now, but they are very close. All right, so yeah, this is going to be the yellow lizard. He's going to have to roll for, he's going to have to roll for consciousness, and he has a -1 penalty now because he is at more than -1 HP, minus 1x HP. So he's got a -1 penalty, so that's going to be a 10, 11, 12, 13. So that's equal to his health. So he does not fall conscious. He does remain conscious, and now he can go ahead and attack with the falchion, and that's going to be a 11 there. So that will be a successful attack. And Misery is going to try to block with the shield. Misery has 11 block. And that's 10, 11. So Misery does just get the block off. Now we go on to the green lizard. The green lizard has to make an immediate check, or has to make a check now to see if they are going to remain conscious. That is a 12, so they will remain conscious. And now they can stand and collect their weapon. And next turn, they'll be able to do something. And then the orange lizard will go ahead and attack here. And that is going to be a 5. That would be a critical hit on, if they had a skill of 15 or better, I believe that would be a critical hit. So normally you would need a 3 or a 4 to get a critical hit. But if you have a skill, if you have a high enough skill, you can get a critical hit on a 5 or a 6. So yeah, you need a 15 plus skill to get a critical hit on a 5. So he's not going to get a critical hit there because his skill is only 13. But for a lot of our characters, a 5 would actually be a critical hit. So good roll there by the lizard. Now Misery is going to try to, Gentry is going to try to parry this. And that is going to be 12. So Gentry is not going to be able to parry this. She has a parry of 11. So the lizard will get an attack here, 2D. So that's 4. And Gentry has got some armor on the torso. 3 points of armor on the torso. So 1 damage will get through. And then half of that rounded down is going to be 0. So it's just 1 damage is going to get through. So Gentry is going to take 1 damage here. And all right, that's going to be the end of the lizard's turn there. Now Gentry will attack. And we're attacking with the rapier. That's going to be 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is a successful attack. Let's see if the lizard can dodge. And the lizard has rolled a 15, so he's not going to dodge there. Gentry will roll a 2D. Let's see, 2D plus 2. So that's going to be 10 damage. The lizard will block 1 with the armor, so 9 damage. And then half of 9 rounded down is going to be 4, so 13 damage to the orange lizard. And that's going to put him at minus 10 for the orange lizard is at minus 10 HP. And he needs to make a knockdown check here because that was more than half of his life, or half or more. And it looks like he will pass the knockdown check. He would have to roll under over a 13 to fail the knockdown check. And this lizard is now going to be down to 0 HP on our initiative tracker. That's going to end Gentry's turn. Barn is going to attack the green lizard. And, I think that might be a fumble there. Let's see, that's going to be 17. Is that going to be a fumble? If your skill is 15 or lower, 17 would be a fumble. And I think Barn has 16 skill. Barn has 16, so he just narrowly missed having a fumble there. A lot of bad stuff can happen on a fumble. You might drop your weapon. You might throw your weapon away. Your weapon might break. So very good that he did not get a fumble right there. But he does fail his attack because he would need to roll at least a 16 to get his attack off. So been a little bit tough for Barn here. All right, Hawk. Hawk is now ready to fire on the green lizard. So Hawk is going to roll against her bow skill of 17, and we will need to check the range penalty is going to be a -2. So we need to roll a 15 or better. And that's going to be 12, 13, 14, 15. So we just got it. See if the lizard can defend with their dodge of 9. And nope, that's going to be higher than 9 there. So now it's going to be 1D for Hawk here. 3. 1D plus 4. So that's going to be 7 impaling damage. 1 will be absorbed by the armor. So 6 will get through. We will multiply that by 2 for impaling damage. So it's going to be 12 damage right there to the green lizard. And the green lizard is already at -8, so they're going to be at -20. And they are going to need to make an immediate death save here because they have now come under a 1x multiply below their health. So that's going to be a 11, 12, 13. So they just narrowly avoided death there. And that will end Hawk's turn. We'll go to Misery's turn, and Misery is going to attack the yellow lizard here. And that's going to be 6, 7, 8, 9. So that'll be a successful attack. The lizard will see if they can dodge. And that'll be 9, 10. So the lizard does not dodge. And we roll for damage. 4, 5, 6, 7. And what is his modifier here? +1, so 8. 1 will be absorbed, and that's going to be 7 damage. Half of 7 rounded down is going to be 3, so 10 damage to the yellow lizard, who is now going to be at -32, and they need to make an immediate death save here again. And that's going to be 10, 11, 12. So they do succeed in that. And they also need to make a knockdown check. And 5, 6, 7, 8. So they will succeed in the knockdown check. And now we're back to the yellow lizard. Now the yellow lizard has got to make a health check at -2. So that is going to be 10, 15, 16, 17. So... that would be 15, and they would have to get under a 11. So, so now this lizard has now, I believe the lizard has actually died because they rolled a 15 because it was so far. Let's see. Let's look at the. All right, it doesn't look like getting a really bad roll there means that you die or anything, but they now have a mortal wound, so they're completely incapacitated. So they are completely out of the fight at this point. They're really a kind of a non-entity at this point. And really, what I'm trying to do here is I'm not trying to kill all the lizards. Really, I'm just trying to incapacitate all of them, and then we can effectively say that the fight is over. And we're pretty rapidly approaching that point as it is. So we could pretty much wrap up the fight pretty soon here, because we could have all of our guys just go ahead and start wailing on them even more, and see they're going to have worse and worse health checks. So really at this point, if you have all of the enemies basically at the point where they're just about to be incapacitated, you've basically won the battle. Or sorry, if you have like, maybe all of them incapacitated, or you have maybe more than half them incapacitated. And also all of our characters are really, they're quite well in the green. So, but that's one thing, that's one somewhat simulation aspect about the combat, is that you're not necessarily always trying to go for absolute death of your enemies. If you can incapacitate them to the point that they really cannot continue fighting, then you can pretty much call the fight at that point. And that's something where, like, if you're playing with a group, the GM may step in and say, okay, I can see how this fight's going. Let's go ahead and just call the fight here. And you don't need to continue with all of these rounds of just chopping everybody up into pieces. Now, that is one of the disadvantage skills that or disadvantage traits that Misery has, that he likes to chop everybody up. But anyway, I think you get the idea of how you resolve a combat, because you're not necessarily always killing everybody off in Dungeon Fantasy, and you don't really need to go for that as a goal. Although you can learn more advanced skills that will allow you to perform sort of fatality type attacks, if that's something that you want to do. And those are typically going to be reserved for higher level characters. And they also have certain costs associated with them as well. So it's not like they become easy in the future. But also, as your characters start doing more damage with their standard attacks, it does also contribute to these characters that are knocked down. It contributes to them being killed a little bit faster. So you don't have the same kind of quick lethality with lesser trained troops as you do with very highly trained troops. Highly trained troops are going to have a sort of faster and quicker lethality to their attacks. So it's all kind of a bit of a simulation aspect to it, and something that changes over time as you have more experienced and skilled characters. So I hope that's given you a basic picture of combat there. And I'm absolutely certain that I did not do everything correctly. And there are some things that I didn't really do. I didn't get into something like grappling and wrestling. And like I said, the hit locations, I kind of just assumed everything was on the torso. So there are some other things that you could do. Also, I didn't use like the spear attack. I could have used a spear where you could say like attack. You could actually stand behind your ally, and you could attack through your ally to another, to your enemy there, using a spear. And the spear rules are very cool. And these guys were kind of like backed up against the wall here. But you could do more sort of like dodging around and chasing around if you have a larger battlefield. And actually, I find that having a little bit larger battlefield with Dungeon Fantasy is kind of nice. So in the future, I'll probably would actually have another maybe 1 or 2 squares here to expand out the battlefield a little bit more. But yeah, so I hope that's given you a decent idea of the basics of combat, and also of Sather's Bane. So if we go ahead and say that we completed this, we're going to go ahead and go to 53. We'll say that we won the fight here. So let's go to 53, paragraph 53, and see what are the results of our fight. After hiding the enemy bodies and obscuring your trail, you hasten towards Cedar Village. So if we wanted to, we could loot their weapons and armor. That's another kind of like realistic aspect of the game, is that you can loot the items that actually are on the characters that you fight. I'm not going to do that right now. And in a lot of cases, you may not want to do that because the items may not be that desirable, and you're also going to encumber yourself. So you have to think carefully about what things you want to take. And I think that reflects real life as well. It's not simply all about just looting everything you can possibly find. You kind of want to pick and choose what you take, and you want to see how that's going to affect your encumbrance and what things are really actually worth taking or not. All right, so let's go to 44 and see what it's going to say there. After a tense game of hide and seek, you escape the enemy territory. As evening falls, you see the welcoming lights of Cedar Village through the trees. go to 37. So we're going to arrive at the Cedar Village, which is our, where we live. And as you reach Cedar Village, several soldiers emerge from cover. Halt and be identified. With a sigh of relief, you recognize Sergeant Richter's squad. You give the countersign. Looks like you had some trouble, Richter says. The captain wants to see you. The village priest, Larson, will tend to any wounded. You reach Cedar Hill before dark, ahead of the lizard folk, but you suspect it won't be long before they're here. After tending to any injuries, perform first aid, use esoteric medicine, or drink a healing potion if you have one. You share your news with Captain Griswold. He sees from your grim faces how serious the threat is. Go to 116 if you have plot word dark, or 96 otherwise. So we have a chance to heal here a little bit if we need to. I think we had a pretty decent wound on Gentry here. So, no, who was it? Oh, yeah, Misery took actually a pretty decent wound, so it would be a chance to heal him up. And then we do have the plot word dark, so we could use that when we go to 116. But anyway, that's gonna wrap up this really long video here. I think we're well over an hour and 15 minutes here. So thank you all very much for watching. Certainly, the combat could go a bit faster if I was not explaining everything to you. And also, there was still a few little things here and there that I needed to look up to run a basic combat. But that combat itself probably could have been as little as probably 25 to 30 minutes, somewhere in that range. And considering that we have 7 combatants, I think that's pretty fair. But yeah, I hope that was helpful to you. And also, if you want to see more when the Warlock Knight is released, when I have the physical book and also all of the physical cards that will come with it, I will be doing a playthrough trilogy of Warlock Knight. And Warlock Knight also is a little bit more sandbox. You have a little bit more freedom of where you want to go, and it does also have a kind of a hex map that comes with it as well. So it's a larger scale adventure that expands a little bit beyond what you see here, even though it does still follow a paragraph adventure gamebook structure, but it's really kind of a hybrid like sandbox gamebook. Very cool. So thank you all very much for watching, and I hope this was useful and enjoyable for you, and I'll see you next time.